Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 10th episode of the Circular Chat presented by ICCE. This weekly program brings together experts and practitioners from various sectors to delve into the integration of circular practices and sustainability in business models. As we embark on the fifth season, our focus and centers on circularity in electrical and electronic equipment sector in collaboration with NSRCell, the Startup Incubation Center at IIM Bangalore. Throughout this season, we have explored pivotal topics such as life cycle of electrical and electronic equipment, e-waste collection, closed and open loop business models, material composition, sustainable business models, from dismantling to recycling, and India's vision for circularity in the WEEE sector across 9 episodes. Today, the topic of our discussion will be responsible recycling. To discuss this topic, we are delighted to have Mr. A.L.N. Rao, CEO, Exigo Recycling India. He leads multiple recycling verticals at Exigo India, like e-waste consumer durables and electronics, ITAD and Mobility, lithium-ion battery, plastic waste, solar, precious metal refining, and PCB waste-to-energy carbonization. Mr. Rao is associated with multiple associations in different capacities. He is the member of Niti Aayog Core Committee for Circular Economy of Lithium-ion Batteries, core member of at CII of Waste to Worth Task Force, R2TAC, Sustainable Electronics, Recycling International, Responsible Recycling. He is also the committee member of Global Technical Advisory. He is the Additional Director, Materials Recycling Association of India. Mr. Rao is a recipient of many awards for his organization's contribution towards sustainable livelihood and making the world a better place to live for next generation. Welcome, Mr. Rao. We appreciate your valuable time today and thanks a lot for your presence.
Morning, Surabhi. Thank you for having me here today. Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, we have a set of questions for you ready, and we would want to know from your knowledge, from your expertise, what's your perspective on these things. So, sir, what role does the consumer play in ensuring responsible recycling of waste from electrical and electronic equipment in India? And how can awareness be raised among consumers regarding this?
It's a good question to start with. And this is a question that's being asked around the world. It's not only here in India. But definition of a consumer needs to be understood first, even before we talk about the awareness for the consumers there. In our country, the government is the major customer, consumer and customer also. Nearly 30-40% of all electronic sales happens to the government of India. And then comes end consumers like you and me. That comes in corporates, bulk consumers is what is called as. And there are other consumers who are part of the ecosystem. So the question here is, is there awareness with all these consumers as well as responsible disposal of the waste that is there in their residences or offices? To the question, the answer is yes and no. We all know, as citizens, we know of the kitchen waste that's generated, we know what to do, right? It's been there for centuries, and we know, and the government of India has, and state governments have worked a lot of things in trying to segregate at source itself. And there is a discipline that's been brought into slowly and steadily into the end consumer. If you talk about plastic waste, the whole world has started talking about it, and there's a lot of awareness that is being created. And now there are people who are able to understand the importance, and the next generation, the youth, are able to understand the problems that are associated with plastic waste, right? Now comes the question of the electronic waste per se. Now, because there is a very high value that's there in the electronic waste, we are all used to disposal of anything and everything in our house, in our residences, and we don't give away anything free. That's the Indian mentality, right? So even for newspapers, we say 10, 15, 20 rupees we need a per kg, right? So in that circumstances, parting away with something which has got a high value is going to be a very, very difficult choice, right? Um, Household goods, it's the lady of the house who is able to take a decision more, but electronics, it's the head of the house or the males that are there who try to possess it and expect a lot of value. So it's a mentality that's there, it's a psyche, and that needs to change. So more so, it's right from the children that the awareness needs to be created, and in the academics, it needs to be imparted of the usage and the harmful effects of not the right disposal, or the right disposal practices needs to be preached and practiced also, right from the very young age, I would say. Has that started in India? Yes, it started in India. On the one side, the global awareness that's there, the digital networking, the the social media that's there. So at an instant you get information. So there are a lot of ways how people are aware of a good and bad of very many things around the world that's happening. B, the government of India, I think from 2016 to 2022, Minister of Electronics had run campaigns reaching out to around 1.4, 1.6 million citizens, and through school education programs, college education programs, train the trainers programs, all that. A lot of producers out there have created a lot of awareness campaigns and programs, including recyclers, dismantlers, PROs, and everybody. All that is a drop in the ocean, right? For a country like India, it's just a drop in the ocean. So very many people, even now, at least 9 out of 10 people do not know what the harmful effects of keeping e-waste in your residences or in your institutions or corporates or offices. B, the right way of disposal. So a lot needs to be done. The government is taking up a lot of initiatives and getting it done, but I believe um, it's a generation. The awareness will start happening, and slowly and steadily, I think that there will be change that will be seen. But with the COP28, COP26, COP27, the Paris Climate Accord, with the G20 that's happened, and everywhere India is taking a lead as far as circularity, sustainability is concerned. This is on the top of the agenda. And I believe so India, the awareness programs will start kicking up in a much, much bigger way than we see till now, or we have seen till now, per se.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So this is very challenging actually for e-waste, especially as you have also mentioned that plastic waste, organic waste, we already know what exactly we are going to do with it. But yes, electronic waste, and that's a very good point that you have raised, that it holds that much value that all consumers, they do not want to part with it very easily. So that is the kind of mentality all of us Indians have, that we want something back in, if we are giving it away, we need something back from that. So that is the kind of mentality. And I was talking to a previous speaker. He explained that in many countries it happens that when electronic waste is there, a big appliance is there or something is there, you need to take it to the recycling center. This is your responsibility to take it to the recycling center and get it recycled, send it to the right channel. But here in India, we want, everything we give away, we want something in return of that. So that is the big mentality, that change has to come in through awareness, through various programs that running, that you have just mentioned, very rightly said, sir. So now that we have talked about the consumer's end, I would want to know that how the successful collaborations between industry and non-government I'm sorry, and how India is taking responsibility of designing products. Now, circular design is there when we are designing some products. they should be designed in a way that at the end of life, they can be reused, they can be refurbished. So please tell us how these designing products with recyclability and an environmental impact in mind, and what incentives or regulations can drive this change.
Well, it's an easy and a complicated question to answer, right? I wish there are easy answers for that. Let me try to look at it from the perspective of a producer. I am a brand having a product. I manufacture parts and components in the product for the world. I need to work out a design that fits in across geographies. If I were to change something, a design for a specific country, it's going to be very difficult. Practically, it's not possible. But at a global level, yes, it's possible. Right. B, if I were to take certain product categories that are actually manufactured in India, say, or where the consumption of certain electronic products are very, 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 very high in India compared vis-a-vis other parts of the world, a design change can be implemented and effective there. Because there's a market out there, the volumes are there, it practically, economically, it will become feasible for the producer to change a particular design in terms of recyclability or repairability for a particular country or for a particular zone or a continent per se. So there are certain practical problems and solutions from a producer's perspective. A recycler or a refurbisher would want to have anything and everything that's the best that suits them. But wish that were that easy, it's not so, per se. So with the change in, it's a dynamic world out there. Electronics goes through changes currently on a daily basis, I would say. So the metals and materials that are being used, there is constant upgradation and innovation that's taking place as far as parts and components and the main product is concerned. In that scenario, obsoleteness is much, much faster for electronics. So a producer looks into various aspects as far as design is concerned. However, there is pressure that's been put across the world on producers as far as design changes is concerned for recyclability or circularity, say. So has it started? A small extent, responsible brands, a few globally have started that process. Is it easy for a change? It's very expensive, to go through all these changes, and it's not so easy. But if you have to be the top of the mind, recall needs to be there for a brand in the end consumer's mind, then you have to get into this, which a few brands have started working on that. So to answer your first part of the question, as far as collaborativeness is concerned, till now, the producers who are or manufacturers producing these products for sale across the world have limited themselves of production, design, development, R&D, design, development, production, manufacturing, placing it in the market and sale and servicing it to a certain extent for X number of years. The pressure has not been there on them as far as ensuring that they recycle the products or they have targets for recycling for the ones. It's a polluter pays principle. Now, globally, that's gaining ground. And India has taken a lead in a very big way of ensuring that the secondary raw material that comes out of recycling is used back into new product manufacturing. The targets have been given to them. So now, earlier that was when it was a buy-sell model where the producers were wanting to, ensure a compliance is taken care of by paying some money. It was a buy-sell model between recycling community and the producers saying that I would like to sell off certain scrap that I have and rest is your headache. But now, because of these new change in rules that's come in, and globally, the various governments taking up initiatives and bringing in circularity, the producers have to start looking at things in a very collaborative way, working with the recyclers on the opportunities and challenges that the recyclers have got for their products, the producers' brands' products per se. And this has started. So the R&D teams between both producer and recycler, the ops teams between both, the logistics teams between both, and all these have started interacting. A few companies have started working in this way. This is going to bring in a change because understanding challenges by the producer at the last mile will help them in designing their products and trying to bring in solutions of their products also for the entire ecosystem for multiple stakeholders. So that we are able to see. So a shift is taking place, but the shift in India is starting to happen much faster because of the policy, because of the statutory regulations that has been announced recently. And that's a game changer. And I think India will take a lead as far as a collaborative model is concerned much faster than the rest of the world, I would say.
Absolutely, sir. So by your words, we can frame that the regulatory framework acts as a catalyst to a successful transition or a faster transition and the responsible transition. Now, sir, if are there any successful collaborations between industry and non-governmental organizations, as you talked about that this is happening? But are there any examples that you can, mention here that have contributed to the safe recycling of WEEE in India or maybe globally also? If you have some successful examples of collaboration between industry and non-governmental organizations.
If you were to look into the supply chain, recycling has been happening earlier also. So if I were to say, if you were to look into the composition of metals and materials in e-waste, 30-40% is plastics, 20-30% is ferrous, 20-30% would be your non-ferrous base metals and alloys like copper, aluminum, tin, lead, zinc, and all that would come in there. 2 to 5%, 5 to 10% would be others and precious metals and rare earth metals. That's the composition. So if you were to ask me that, are these metals and materials that are being recycled, are these being used in new product manufacturing and electronics? I would say yes, to a certain extent. Is it happening directly between a producer and a recycler? I would say no, currently. So through third parties, the recycled content is actually transacted through third parties, and eventually it reaches a producer somewhere in the world.
Okay.
Now, because there was not an incentive for anybody and everybody in the country to for the producer and recycler to get into a collaborative model, and since there was no statutory push that was coming in, it was deemed that it is not necessary. But now, since the situation has changed, and India trying to look into becoming an Atmanirbhar there, and with the life policy coming in announced by our Prime Minister, the push is already coming in into all the stakeholders for collaboration, for reuse of secondary raw material in their new product manufacturing, either in the main product, core, non-core parts, components, or consumables, anywhere per se. So examples are there. If you were to look into the supply chain of the second, third, fourth tier downstream, there are tie-ups that are there. In the plastics scenario, we can see a producer and a recycler getting connected with each other, and there is a direct relationship, a collaboration taking place even as we speak. On the metal side, it's not started yet in a bigger and better way. That is the change that we are able to see. That is the initial signs of the change which we are able to see now, where discussions are happening already between producing and the producers and recyclers community in India. So there are a few examples of a few brands in plastics, in rubber, in metals, in ferrous, either direct or through 2, 3 tiers downstream tie-ups per se. So we are able to see that it's happening. But I think in the next 24 months, this would be visible to a large extent to the country. 12 to 24 months, I will see that India would be on the circular economy path, demonstrating in the EEE segment and WEEE segment good innovations as well as active partnerships, collaborative partnerships will be announced.
So we are looking ahead for a brighter and better future. That means with all the regulatory frameworks and the government trying has good intentions of moving towards circular economy. So just a small question that has just come to my mind as you were talking about the secondary raw materials. There is not direct connection between producers and the recyclers, and the secondary raw material is being given to a third party. So is that is happening towards the across the borders also, like something which is being produced in India, a secondary raw material which was India's, maybe a country's raw material, and that is being exported to some other country? Are these cross border things are also happening, or there are some regulatory frameworks regarding that also, that whatever secondary material you are extracting or taking out, that should be used in your country only, because these are the resources of one country, the material that is flowing in the entire supply chain, that is, these are the resources of your own country. So I just want to know exactly, is there something related to it? Some regulatory frameworks are there? How does this happen?
It's a very much broader topic, actually speaking, right? And it's a businessman is always trying to find ways and means how he can increase his business, right? Opportunities and challenges and limitations needs to be looked into from a business perspective. If there is something which I, as a producer or a recycler, I'm able to recover, but there's no demand in the country, I don't have any choice but to export it, or to export it to somebody who's got a need for that metal or material that's there. There will be certain ones which the economics doesn't fit in the overall scheme of things to export. So obviously those metals materials will be sold within the country and consumed within the country, right? And maybe the cost of logistics across borders would be so high, it doesn't make sense. So hence it's being sold locally here, per se. There are certain technologies and processes that are premium, which is not available in the country at all. And that's there in certain, because there are certain countries who are evolved in this particular space and it's been shipped. As the country starts moving towards self-sustainability, the R&D and the capability to process anything and everything would start getting set up here in India in a bigger way. Why would somebody want to invest in such advanced technologies and processes? Because they believe there is a market here in India. Right? But the policy is something they look at for increase in manufacturing, sustainability, circularity, global supply chain issues, and all that. The policy aids in a businessman investing into the latest or futuristic technologies and processes here, whereby they have a double whammy where there is demand out there from India, and the policy is a catalyst to actually push the demand up, And if India can become that sort of a hub where you're able to offer solutions not only for the products that needs to have that high-tech recycling or refining technologies and processes, the world becomes a market for India then, and a lot of car may imported also. So it's a broader subject, but hope I'm able to give you that perspective that
Yes.
at the end of the day, it has to make a business sense. It has to make an economic sense. Only then things will move forward, and either in the form of subsidies by the government of India or in the form of policy push where the demand is created within the country. And in this way, an investor will come forward and invest and will start catering to the needs of the local as well as the international players in multiple um, verticals, I would say.
Thank you, sir, for this answer. And actually, yeah, it is making sense that a business has to be viable to sustain itself. Otherwise, businesses won't run just to think that ways. But yeah, as we move forward, as you are also saying, Atmanirbhar Bharat, as we are looking forward to Atmanirbhar Bharat, we might, get into that phase also. So now, sir, tell me some initiatives and policies those are in place to ensure that informal recycling in India, especially in the e-waste sector, adheres to responsible and safe practices, because there is a huge sector of informal recyclers and they are exposed to hazardous materials on a day-to-day basis. So what improvements are needed in this sector, and what are the policies and initiatives that are already in place?
Yeah. See, there are millions of people. I mean, I do not know why people call them informal sector. I believe that they are part of the ecosystem. If they were not there, trust me, India would have been in a very, very bad shape. There are two parts to it: informal collection and informal recycling. The best reverse logistics system worldwide you can find through this informal reverse logistics collection mechanism. That's the best. You might put in the best of blockchain technologies. I think their system will beat that also. So we need to learn a lot from them there. The question is, because the formal recycling is not organized, is not strengthened, hence there is an opportunity for the informal recycling to take place in a much bigger and better way. If the formal recycling gets strengthened, like how that is happening now with the new rules that came up for e-waste management rules 2022, where strengthening of the formal recycling industry is happening. The era that was there pre-November 2022, in 2016, the EPR rules that came in and the amendment that came in 2018 was the starting point for the industry to get evolved, and it gave in some sort of a visibility on the way forward. And there were a lot of pluses and minuses there. Good pros and cons were identified in a big way. Lessons learned the hard way. And this rule has brought in some change, and digitizing anything and everything as far as waste management is concerned is is a very, 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 very big thing for a country like us. And that's the change that we're able to see now happening. With tracking, traceability, visibility happening now digitally, the ecosystem in the formal recycling will start getting strengthened in a much, much bigger way, because of which a lot of investments would start coming in, because of which a lot of formal recognized conglomerates and industry players would start investing and starting this business. Then what happens is the informal sector would start finding opportunities to get integrated with the formal sector, because they also do not want to get harassed by various authorities, right? They have their livelihoods. The formal players would start incorporating them into the formal chain in different ways and means, and they would be happy to get associated also. Incentives by the government of India to strengthen. Can you give an incentive to an informal sector? You can give. I'm not against it, but how will you? What is it going to do? Um, what's going to benefit the country by giving an incentive to an informal sector? Rather, strengthen the formal sector, incentivize them, and work out ways and means, including rewards and penalties to the formal sector in incentivizing the informal sector. And then you will have starting to have control over the ecosystem slowly and steadily. And in the formal sector now, everything is being tracked and traced, and pressure being put on the producers also for tracking and traceability. And in the new rules of refurbishing aspect coming in in a very big way, giving flexibility and advantage to the producer by X percentage of EPR targets if they were to refurbish, the producers would start looking at collecting material themselves after the end of life, or where there's still life there, so where you can extend the life of the product. Once that starts happening, the availability of the products, the WEEE, will start getting reduced to the informal sector. So the formal sector will start getting into the collection mechanism in a much formal way. And obviously the informal sector will start getting merged into the informal will get merged into the formal sector there. So it's an ecosystem that needs to be created. We just started now. So as and when the rules have defined the definition of a recycler very clearly, and the types of recyclers and so on and so forth, things are changing now. With all this coming in a year's time, I believe that anybody and everybody who's wanting to dispose of will have to get a certificate from a recognized, authorized recycler registered on the CPCB portal. When that happens, that inventory will not be available for sale to the highest bidder. It will be available for sale to a recognized recycler only. So when the material flow is controlled at that source, automatically the informal sector will start moving in the right direction and start getting merged in the formal sector. So they will become better informal collectors for the formal sector, and the recycling would be done by the formal sector to a large extent. I believe in the next 24, 36 months' time, these changes will be seen across verticals, 11 verticals we can see this change that will happen in the country.
I am delighted to know all of this, sir, and now it's making sense why we ask different speakers to come in on every episode. Everybody has a different perspective about all the situations or all the the things that are going on, and I loved your perspective on these things, because you are giving a different perspective to each problem that we have, and it is showing that it is making sense. The way that you said that the informal sector is not actually the informal sector, it's the formal sector which is unorganized. That's why we are giving way to the informal sector to get into this. So when the formal sector gets strengthened and it's built up in an organized way, then only there will be a possibility of getting the informal sector merged into the form. That's a very beautiful perspective, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. So now, sir, now in what ways can consumer awareness campaigns and industry partnerships and NGO collaborations be leveraged to create a more responsible and sustainable e-waste recycling ecosystems in India? Please tell us.
There's been some millions of funds that's been spent by producers, by government, And what has happened earlier is individually, everybody tried talking very many things. And it got dissolved much faster. The nation was not speaking in one voice. That is the issue. And that's been identified now. And even if we have around 10 messages only, if the 10 messages are spoken by 1,000 people repeatedly, it will create an impact. Now, that X number of messages is what the Ministry of Electronics is working on and is requesting all stakeholders to become a part of the ecosystem. There will be some rewards that will be given to each stakeholder also by the Government of India through MeitY. And everybody speak the same language, the same message, in different languages, vernacular languages also. It's like our Swachh Bharat or the toilet scheme or Swachh Bharat. If you see, the message was simple. It was very few messages, but told repeatedly by various players around the country. That's the concept that's being thought about. Now we need to put it into action. We have not created that. So it's not just the NGO or the producer or the end consumer or anybody. The NGOs will have a role in taking responsibilities and leadership responsibilities with the Government of India to understand the need to work on the content, to work on the means, and have a plan for the country. They can take a lead by announcing various measures. And if the Government of India accepts to it and they say, okay, the producers and the recyclers and other stakeholders also will take up the same. And with various CSR funds and various funds that's there, they will engage with those stakeholders who are active in spreading this message. In this way, I believe as a country, we will be able to deliver the message that needs to be delivered to the end user in a structured, formal, professional way. So I think that's the way forward. And everybody have to join hands as far as awareness is concerned. It shouldn't be done in silos, else you can claim saying that you have done something, but at the end of the day, after a couple of years, has it created an impact? No. So what is it that will create an impact at the ground level needs to be identified, addressed, worked out through multiple stakeholders, committees, and discussions, evolve a plan, and then execute. I believe we will be able to see success there.
Surely, sir, surely. This does give us really good hope of India's waste management journey, I hope. And with this, we are coming to an end to this session, sir. And it has been a pleasure talking to you. It was a great conversation that we just had. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for coming and talking about responsible recycling today.
Thank you, Surabhi, for giving this opportunity. And you people are doing a great job in trying to spread a lot of information, good information through various speakers out there to all stakeholders in the country, especially the next generation, the youth. I mean, with time being the friend and an enemy nowadays for anybody and everybody, these sort of episodes would help people get knowledge much bigger, faster, and from the right experts also. And it's a good job that's being done by you people. Keep up the good work. Keep continuing the good work, and look forward to many more such interactions with you people wherever possible. Offer our expertise and to make the country move forward positively and make a big difference to be a leader in the world as far as multiple waste streams and good ecosystems are concerned. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for watching this video, audience. I hope we have been able to provide genuine information and awareness through this episode. We look forward to welcome you next Wednesday at the same time for another episode featuring a new expert. Should you have any queries, please feel free to reach out to us at surabhi@icce.com. Stay connected through our social media channels for updates on upcoming events. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.